What's up, and welcome to Saturday's Warrior. It is another great day here in Big 12 land as we continue to celebrate the addition of Colorado to the new Big 12. And now that the conference is going to be back up to 13 members after Texas and OU leave, all the discussion is about who the 14th and potentially 15th and 16th members of the new Big 12 are going to be. And obviously, first things first, the Big 12 is looking towards the Pac 12 to see what other additional programs it can bring into the fold. And we're going to look at that based off of the criteria that Brett Yormark gave us, that he said that they look at in terms of expansion and see which of the remaining Pac-9 schools could potentially fit in further Big 12 expansion. But before we look at that, please be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Okay, jumping right in here, a few weeks ago, we did another video evaluating potential Big 12 expansion candidates using the criteria that Brett Yormark said on an interview with BYU Sports Nation that he himself uses when evaluating other schools. And he didn't go into detail specifically on what each of these means, and so we did kind of a high level thumbs up or thumbs down on each of these schools based on the criteria that he outlined. And as you can see here, Colorado was in fact one of the best candidates for expansion, assuming that football wasn't weighted so heavily that their poor performance on the field didn't preclude them. But as we know now, it obviously didn't. I think Coach Prime coming in probably had something to do with that. So with Colorado in now and the conference at 13 members, they'll obviously want to get to an even number and add at least a 14th, if not a 15th and 16th member. And so we wanted to come back and revisit this and see who else could they add. And as we know right now, their main focus is on the Pac-12. And so today we're not going to look at any of the G5 programs for the meantime until we know what happens with the Pac-12. And something that we didn't do the first time around, because we didn't think it would even be in the realm of possibility, was include Oregon and Washington on this list. And so we're going to go through quickly and rate those two schools and see how they stack up with these other Pac schools. Okay, so first off, Brett Yormark said he wants schools that are intentional. And what he was explaining by that was schools that really believe in the Big 12 and want to be there and aren't just going there because there's more money or there's no better options on the table at the time. So obviously, Oregon and Washington were not interested in the Big 12 at all until Colorado left and the Pac continues to not have a TV deal. So I would put them as no on that one. And that's a big red flag up front. But let's keep looking at it. Academics, I would give them check marks. Washington, obviously. Oregon, less so, but they are still ahead of many of the Big 12 schools. So at least in terms of the U.S. News rankings. And so I'll leave them there with a check mark. And leadership, I continue to defer on this one. I'm not exactly sure how he would look at that. There are, as it came to my attention, awards that go out to the best athletic directors, and so that could be one metric, but I don't want to get too heavily in that and evaluating, deciding who I think is and isn't a good leader, because I'm too far removed from that. Cultural fit, I would say also this one is a no. I don't think that should surprise anybody. Geography, on the other hand, is a big yes, because even though Colorado gives the conference a second school in the Mountain Time Zone, another school to partner with BYU and to fill some of those late night time slots, they're still not actually in the Pacific Time Zone, which Brett Yormark has specifically said that he wants to get into. And so both of them obviously would provide that. Now, athletic performance in football, I would say yes to both of them. Obviously, they've done well. Even on their down years, they're still solid programs with the potential to be very good in any given year. Athletic performance in men's basketball, this is where they differ. Finally, you have Oregon as a solid program. Washington has struggled of late, but they have had very good years in the past. And so, again, I still think there's that potential there. Lastly, there's brand upside. And this is a tough one without knowing exactly what Yormark meant by this, but it's one that we tried to tackle. We collaborated with Wild Ute on creating a ranking and evaluation of all the college football programs at the P5 and many of the expansion candidate G5 programs, and rank them all and put them into tiers. And one thing we found was that Washington was in our top tier with all of the blue blood programs, up there with your Alabamas, Michigan, Texas, Notre Dame, all those programs. Washington, they were on the bottom end of that, but they were up there. And then Oregon was in that next tier, but just barely. So those are still two really big brands that bring a lot of cachet to have in your conference. I would say that brings a lot of upside. So I would say that both of these are definitely a yes. So now let's compare how these two stack up with the other Pac schools. And when looking at it, it'd still say that Arizona, is who they mirror Colorado in this, would be the next obvious candidate. ASU would be very solid, except that they've been adamant that they do not want to leave the Pac. And so even if they change their mind now, would it seem like they're intentional, like Yormark said that he wants, or would it seem like they're just trying to get a life raft off of a sinking ship? And then Utah would be good in so many ways, but it's also kind of conflicting as well, and they're another one that's been adamant that they would like to keep the Pac together. Then Washington State and Oregon State, I think they'd both be good fits in the Big 12 in many ways, but with limited slots and with the Big 12 now in a position of power, it makes sense to go out there and get the programs that are going to be the best fit and bring the most value. And right now, unfortunately, I don't think it's them. And it's not because I have anything against those two schools. I certainly don't. I just think that they need to take their time. And it sounds like they would definitely like to have a 14th school lined up for next season. But for me, I think it's okay even to play one season with 13 schools to make sure that you get that right 14th school in, and you're not just picking up someone for the sake of picking up someone. Now, going back to Oregon and Washington, they don't really stack up as well for the Big 12 as these other schools, mostly because of the intentional and cultural fit, which seem like two very important criteria for a new member into the conference. They are two programs that have not wanted to be there and really don't feel like they fit with the other schools. And so do you want to bring them in and risk messing with the mojo of the conference? It really comes down to the brand upside and how heavily weighted each of these categories is. Is their brand so big that it outweighs some of these cons, some of the negatives that they might bring with them? They might be. So what might be the play? And I would still think that Arizona, if you're only going to 14, might make more sense because it brings in a better fit and more stability. Still a very big brand, not as big as those other schools, but still a great brand. And they supply a lot of what the conference is looking for. But if they are going to 16, even if knowing that there's a chance that Oregon and Washington end up leaving, I think it's worth bringing them in because of the narrative, because of the branding, because of the position that it puts the Big 12 in. So if Oregon and Washington sincerely do want to come to the Big 12 and the price is right, that is, they're not asking for too many concessions, then I think you take them, even understanding that they could be loners or could be out the door in a few years looking for greener pastures. However, I'm not completely convinced that they're sincere. They might just be positioning themselves within the Pac or also trying to create pressure and urgency for the Big Ten so that they could get those Big Ten invites now. They might not, I'm sure they're doing their due diligence with the Big 12, but I'm not completely convinced how intentional, to use Yormark's phrase, or sincere really that is right now. But there is certainly a lot of smoke with it. So my guess is most likely that if they only go to 14 members, it's going to be Arizona. Then the question is, do they add that 15th and 16th? I would only do it if it's Washington and Oregon, and then just kind of wait down the road for the next wave of realignment to hit and see what options become available. What do you think? Who would you add right now to get to that 14th? And do you want to see the conference get to 16 members? And if so, which 3 teams would you like to see added into the Big 12 now? please let us know in the comments. Be sure to like the video and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.